everyone. Let's get the meeting underway. Good evening. Welcome to the May Recreational Astronomy Night meeting of the Toronto Centre RASC. My name is Paul Markov. I'll be introducing the speakers this evening, and a hello also to our viewers on YouTube. We have 3 speakers lined up this evening, as usual, and let me tell you who they are first. It's going to be Andy Beaton presenting the sky this month, followed by Blake Nancarrow. He'll talk to us about session planning with SkyTools, followed by Charline Norgrove, Atacama A's. Now, we are supposed to have an announcement by our DDO lead, by Ravi Shankar, and I guess we'll go ahead with Andy's presentation, and as soon as she arrives, we'll have her do that announcement. It's about volunteering and the program that's about to start at the DDO in sometime in June. And also, I know that there is a coordination meeting that's going to happen in the studio next door to us, and she'll tell us when that will happen. If it's going to happen in the middle of the meeting, at the end of the meeting, I'm not sure. All right, so just a quick show of hands. Do we have any new people here for first-time attendees or new members or not new members? Very good. Welcome. And I think we'll get started with the meeting. So I'll call on Andy Beaton to present the sky this month.
Okay, here we are again. It looks like we're finally going to get into decent weather this time of the year. Pity the sun sets so late, but we'll take what we can get. We've got on this night the big picture, planets, the moon, globular clusters, comets and meteors, variable stars. Is Blake here? Yep, okay, got a treat for Blake. And spaceflight highlights. So the big picture, here we are at night, just after twilight. What we have looking west, we've got, oh, can we see? No, we can't see the pointer on the screen there. Let's try, oh, there we go. Got Venus setting just after twilight. Other than that, we don't have a lot of interesting, exciting stuff going on in the western sky. We do have the dwarf planet Ceres showing up in Leo there. We've got the moon. This is halfway through the month, getting close to the full moon. Morning is much more interesting. In the morning, we have a nice parade of planets: Saturn, Pluto. Yes, I know. Mars, Neptune, and Uranus is kind of buried somewhere down here. We also get everybody's favorite summer constellations coming up. We've got Scorpius here, we've got Sagittarius coming up. So if you can stay up late, you're going to see all your favorite Milky Way objects. And all the usual good summer stuff is coming up all through Ophiuchus, Aquila, Cygnus, and so on. Nights are getting too short. This is the bad part of this time of the year. It's almost 11 o'clock before it gets dark enough to really do anything. By 3 o'clock, God damn it. It doesn't have to say fix anymore. Those times are accurate. At twilight starts at 3:10. By the end of the month before the next meeting, it's 20 after 11 before things get dark, and 2:40 in the morning when they start getting too light to do any useful observing. So it's a good time to be looking for the moon, for planets, for stuff that doesn't require serious deep sky observing. Important dates coming up. June 13th is the new moon. We're getting close to the summer solstice, just a couple days after the next members' night. On June 2nd, we have the moon at apogee and perigee at June 15th. The reason I put it in there is there's really not much exciting in the way of key dates going on this month. So if you have a hankering to try a new project, try taking pictures of the moon at these 2 dates and comparing the size, which should have some interesting results. Mid-May to late June is blackfly season. If you're going to be up in Collingwood or Algonquin or anywhere, be prepared. It's a nasty time to be out in the woods. And just after the next meeting, we have the RASC General Assembly in Calgary. If I told you about it next month, you wouldn't have enough time to get your tickets to prepare, so here's some advance warning. The General Assemblies are worth going to. I'm not going to it myself unless I find a lot of money on the couch cushion the next few weeks, but I strongly recommend people do go. Yes? Yeah.
Apologies for interrupting, but I just found out that by Ravi Shankar has arrived and went straight to Studio One next door, and she's going to start the video coordination discussion. So if any of you would prefer to be in that room, please go ahead.
I will not take it as a personal insult.
She's going to provide a PDF of everything that was discussed to folks who can't. Would rather stay here. So your choice.
Okay. So we have the moon, as always, a full moon on May 29th, last quarter on the 6th, new moon on June 13th, and the first quarter is on June 20th, early in the morning, so it's actually technically before the next members meeting, so it comes in under my schedule here. Later on June 20th, we have the next opportunity to see the lunar X. I'm guessing at this point everybody here knows what the lunar X is. If you don't, here's a picture of it I saved from last time. And it's this X-shaped feature where we've got the sunlight coming in on a certain angle that makes an X appear out of some crater walls. It's a cool thing to look for. So we have planets coming up, as always. After mid-June, the planet Mercury should be appearing in the evening sky. By June 16th, it gets at its highest. It's not a really great opportunity for us to view it. The angle is not very good, but it will be there. You cannot miss Venus. It's insanely bright and really obvious. If you have a look at it through a telescope or even a fairly powerful pair of binoculars, you'll be able to see it actually has a phase right now. It's a gibbous Venus. As the month goes on, it's growing closer to a full Venus, and it's also getting closer to us, so it gets bigger and brighter the longer we wait. It's also going to be passing 2 degrees north of the moon on June 16th, so if you've got a wide-angle telescope or a telephoto lens with about that field of view on your camera, it's going to be a very nice photo opportunity. You should be able to get matching phases on there as well. So the morning planets, so you saw a brief glimpse of them in the big picture. Wake up early, if you're the kind of person who gets up early. You get a parade of Saturn, Mars, Neptune, and Uranus. It's a really good time to be looking at Saturn right now because the rings are wide open. It looks quite spectacular. Mars is not very big, but it is close to full. I don't know how much detail you'll be able to see. June 19th is when Neptune starts going retrograde. It turns around and goes backwards in the sky. If you have an interest in a minor observing project, record its positions over the nights before and after June 19th and see if you can actually track it as it turns around from the Earth's point of view. On June 1st, the moon will be passing by Saturn. On June 3rd, it will be passing by Mars. Both of those should be interesting photo opportunities. Not quite as easy to manage as with Venus because neither of those planets are nearly as bright, but yeah, it should be worth making an attempt. Uranus will be showing up in the very late dawn or just before twilight. If you have a very low eastern horizon, you should be able to see it if you try. If you live in the city and you've got houses and trees around you, you're going to have to wait. Sadly, the ecliptic is fairly low in the sky from our point of view at looking to these planets. So none of them are going to be very high in the sky. It's not going to be a great opportunity for detailed imaging unless you happen to be traveling further south, somewhere south of the Tropic of Cancer, where you can look overhead and see the planets there. The other planets, Jupiter, Pluto, and Ceres, yes, I'm calling them all planets. Jupiter is the obvious one. It's the best thing to look at in the sky if you've got kids or people who don't really know what they're looking for and want to see something spectacular. It's not too far south. You'll be able to see good detail. There have been reports that the Great Red Spot is fading and growing weaker. If you have an interest in taking detailed observations of the Great Red Spot between now and probably the rest of the year, you could be gathering some very useful scientific information. Now, everybody knows the regular 4 Jovian moons, but if you're looking for something a bit more challenging, there's always more moons to go looking for. Himalaya is 14th magnitude, and if you've got, say, something like a 8, a 10, or a 12-inch telescope, it might be a target worth looking for. Amalthea is about the same brightness, but it's much closer to Jupiter and much easier to lose in the glare of the planet. Pluto is in Sagittarius, which makes it a really tough find among all the stars. Best way to find it is probably to take pictures on multiple successive nights and look for that moving object. I don't know if it would be feasible to actually look for it with the naked eye. Ceres is in the constellation Leo, about 7.5 magnitude, and it is just booting along through the sky. So if you have an interest in doing an asteroid tracking project, this would be a good one to work on. It's bright and it's fast. It's always a good time to look for stuff in the deep sky. This is a really good time of the year to go looking for globular clusters. The bright ones visible just about overhead for us are in Hercules, Bootes, Serpens Caput, and Ophiuchus. All of them are pretty good urban targets. They're pretty bright, they're pretty concentrated, and because they're made of stars, they're good at getting through the sky glow. I really like globular clusters as targets to be showing people when they're looking through the telescope. I think that they actually look better to the eye than they do in the camera. I think with cameras it's far too easy for the cores to get washed out and burned out, but with the naked eye and a decent telescope you can actually resolve stars all the way through. And that's always spectacular. My favorite late spring deep sky object is actually not a globular cluster, it's the Ring Nebula. Anybody who's done any serious observing knows it very well. They've seen it too many times. Almost any telescope will find it, but there's some stuff there that can make it a bit more interesting. Trying to spot the central star, it's 15.8 magnitude, which is not an easy reach for anything less than probably a 12 or a 14-inch telescope. If you're interested in photography, taking long exposure photos will actually reveal material around the famous ring shape. It's all hydrogen alpha stuff, so if you have your hydrogen alpha filter and patience, you can get a pretty good image of all the material around it. This is my favorite image of M57 because the person who took it was me. And it's not a very good image because I was experimenting with a cheap astro camera and I wasn't as concerned with alignment or focusing as I should have been, but I'm throwing it in here because you can see the 15th magnitude star in the center there. And yeah, that's achievable by just about any amateur in the photography department, because I could do it, and this was probably my third or fourth attempt to take a picture. Comets and meteors, meteor showers, they're pretty lame this month. Both are in the daylight, both have hardly any meteors. If you're traveling and you're on the other side of the world, it might be worth having a look. Or I guess if you're the kind of person who has a radio telescope or even a shortwave radio receiver and you want to try and pick up the sound of radio stations being echoed off the trails they leave, it might be worth a try, but I wouldn't put too much effort into it. We have one decent comet in the sky right now, 2016 M1 Pan-STARRS. It's about 10th magnitude. It's in Sagittarius right now. They're predicting a maximum of 9.6 on June 28th, but it's a comet. It could be anywhere from 8 to 14th magnitude on that day. Worth giving it a look, but it's not going to be the greatest comet of our lifetime. So obviously I'm not going to do the sky this month without throwing in a variable star. Our Corona Borealis is the interesting one this time. What kind of variable star is it? It's an R Corona Borealis star. It is the type that the entire genre is named after. Right now it's about 6th magnitude. If you take a look at the constellation Corona Borealis, and it kind of looks circular, it's a 6th magnitude star inside that circle. Now, for reasons nobody fully understands, every now and then it drops down to 14th magnitude or even lower. Probably due to carbon dust condensing in the atmosphere. It's basically made of nothing but helium and carbon at this point. All the hydrogen is burnt out. So it's still not entirely well understood. So any data that you feel like gathering, it's going to be useful scientific data. So I would recommend going out and taking a look. If you've got a pair of binoculars, it'll be easy to see it when it's 6th magnitude. When it's 14th magnitude, it'll be a bit harder, but I'm sure there are plenty of people here with the equipment necessary. Now, I'm also going to throw in a plea for an observing campaign. This has been going on for a few months. AG Draconis is a cataclysmic variable that has weird, unpredictable outbursts, and it's going through an outburst right now. It's getting close to the end. But astronomers from the Pavel Josef Savarek University in Slovakia are currently studying it and have put out a plea for astronomers around the world to gather as much data on this star as possible. And the people who gather that data are you and I. So if you have a chance to record this star, this will be actual useful scientific data that is immediately wanted, not just something that's going to sit in a database for 10 years until someone gets around to it. For Blake, I've got a double star. I remember it this time. I didn't know whether to pick something obvious so the younger observers could get a chance to go out and see something, or look for something really nitty-gritty difficult for the experienced observers to go at. So I picked this one, Caracara Corcari, also Alpha Canum Venicatorum. When you're looking at it, it's actually it's a very attractive, easy to find bright star. If you take a look at, say, the Big Dipper and take a look at the handle stars and imagine they're part of an arc of a circle, then Caracara is pretty much around the center of the circle, and it's bright and hard to miss. You can see there is a difference between the colors. The brighter star is bluer than the secondary star. Everyone says it's green. It looks white to me. But the important thing is the primary star is actually slightly variable. It varies by about 1/10 of a magnitude, which means it's not going to be easy to do for an observation with your eye, but if you have a photometer, and when I say a photometer, I also mean a CCD camera or even an SLR camera, you can actually take fairly accurate photometric measurements of brightnesses of stars, and this is an eligible target. If you want to record it moving around the orbit, the period's around 7,900 years, so you're probably not going to see too much action there. But if you start now, and we perfect the technology of putting our brains in robots, we might be able to do something with that. So coming up in spaceflight, June 6th, we have a crewed Soyuz ship going to the ISS. June 14th, we're trying an air-launched Pegasus rocket with NASA's Ionospheric Connection Explorer. Rocket Lab is trying their third Electron rocket launch in an as yet unspecified date. The Chinese are launching a couple of Long March rockets, and Falcon rocket launches are really getting to the point where they're commonplace. From now until June 9th, ISS passes all through the night. We're at the right angle that no matter when it passes overhead, it'll be in daylight. Now, I'm not sure about this. Last time I was looking at it, I had a pair of 10 power binoculars, and I leaned it up against a post. And I could convince myself that I actually saw a squarish kind of shape when I was looking at the ISS. And I don't know whether that's my imagination at work or whether it was really there. But I'd be curious to know if other people have attempted the same thing and if they've ever seen anything looking like a shape in the ISS with that. As usual, heavensabove.com gives you time and locations for seeing the ISS go by. And I guess the other news for spaceflight is the James Webb Telescope has been delayed again. They've had problems with the sunshade getting tangled up while it tries to unfurl. So hopefully that's not going to endanger the mission, but it's something we're going to have to keep an eye on and find out what happens. And that's it. Thanks very much. And are there any questions? No? Okay. Good. Thanks.
So I'm going to pop over next door to grab Ravi for the DDO announcement. Here, So she was in the middle of a sentence, so she said, just a minute. She'll be here in a moment. In the meantime, any announcements that we can insert here while we wait? No comments, announcements, anything?
Actually, I'll do one.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Rob.
I've got an email announcement that I'm forward on. Just need to find my reference here. This one's a little bit of an odd one, but the membership has been invited to apply to participate in a commercial shoot, and it's for Shell Canada, I believe. They intend to do an advertisement which features amateur astronomers trekking out to do a stargazing party. And they're offering people who apply and get accepted by the casting company a very generous pay for appearing in this commercial. Now, I suspect that it also means that it's going to be more than just a couple of hours of involvement. But they're saying that they're offering for a day of filming a fee of between $750 and $1,500. So, yeah. So anyway, they haven't actually said when they're doing this, but they have a casting company that has been engaged to recruit people. And I do have the contact information. So if you're interested in finding out about this more, you can catch me after the meeting. I'll give you the information where you can go online and fill in the application form. Again, what happens is that with this kind of endeavor, they have a casting company that's going to vet the people who apply for this particular little job, and then they'll decide on whether they want you or not. And those that get chosen get to go on this day excursion, get filmed, and eventually show up on a TV commercial. So anyway, it should be interesting for those of you who try it, okay? And I see Bhairavi's here, so I'll turn the mic over to her to talk about the DDO. By the way, this afternoon I was over at Richmond Hill and signed off the contract that sets up the partnership between us and the town of Richmond Hill for operating the outreach programs at the DDO. So Bhairavi, turn it over to you.
All right. Can you hear me? Yes, okay. Hello, as Ralph mentioned, we are now officially back at the DDO. Yay. Yeah, exciting times. So now we can officially launch our programming and dive right into what is going to be quite a busy summer and a very interesting fall and so on for the next year. So I'm literally right now next door updating our group of volunteers who have expressed interest in helping out with our events at the DDO. Basically, I'll mention we sent out a survey not too long ago, about a week ago, asking for particulars if you are interested, what it is that you're interested in doing when you're able to help us, because we do have a scheduled set of events. So if you haven't already filled out that survey, we encourage you to please go ahead and fill that out, and that helps us with coordinating events. I won't use up too much time over here, but I'll just highlight that our first event is an astronomy lecture night happening, slated for June 2nd. We do have a presenter ready to go. We will know for sure if we're actually running that event if we have more than 20 registrants through the Town of Richmond Hill's website, etc. So that's our first event on the calendar. Our main event that we're all getting ready to coordinate on, and what I'm actually talking next door about, is our grand opening event. That is slated for June 9th, a Saturday, between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. We have a whole range of things happening both inside the admin building and outside on the park area. It includes a range of tours, again, happening inside or outside, to the 74-inch. And so we're coordinating and have quite a few roles that we would like to fill out. So again, if you're interested and able to help us out, let us know, and we will be sending out some sort of documentation that summarizes all that I'm talking about next door. So if you're unable to attend it tonight, don't worry, we'll send something. So with that, I'll leave it. Oh yes, questions. Take questions, if any. I guess not.
No questions.
No questions.
Question.
Oh yes, hello.
I was talking to Ian Wheelbam about doing an equivalent of the Nova course up there, and he was saying that Richmond Hill was possibly going to require we go through a training course or a vetting course before we're allowed to volunteer. Is that a thing that's happened?
It's not yet happened, but that is something that, yes, we would be required to put something to a local committee at the DDO to see if it can be run. So that's, stay tuned. We'll run these first few set of events and get into a routine. And then we are also interested in offering the Nova course, but that may just happen a bit later in our schedule.
Okay.
So stay tuned. Any other questions?
Sorry, I'm not sure if this relates to what Andy just asked, but I believe in the survey I saw it mentioned that there might be a requirement to have some kind of a certification of some sort
Yes.
by the DDO.
Yes.
Does that include if you just go in there with your telescope and you're sitting on the lawn, or is it in something that entails everything?
It's a combination, depending on what the role is. So I'll ask you to contact us offline, and then we can discuss that a bit further. Okay. All right.
All set? Okay, very good. Thank you, bye, Ravi. It's too late. Okay. Well, now everybody wants to know what you just told me, right? So, Rachel was telling me that if we finish the meeting around 9 o'clock, we can pop over in the hall here, and there is a technology, they call it popnology,
Yeah, so
pop
it's
culture
science-
technology.
Science fiction becoming science fact. So there's a lot of stuff on Star Trek and Star Wars and 2001: Space Odyssey.
Okay.
Boring, Back to the Future stuff.
But if we finish around 9:30, then it's too late, then we can't go, we should get back out of here. All right.
It's not going anywhere anytime soon, so keep your talk is fine.
Okay, thank you, very good. All right, so,
I just wanted to mention that in case you're wondering, why didn't she make us go over the bridge upstairs? That's why.
all right, so Blake is just about ready to go with session planning with SkyTools.
Thank you. So good evening. Thanks for coming out this evening. I wanted to talk to you about how you can do astronomical session planning with a particular piece of software. I'm a big fan of this software. Admittedly, I've been using it for about 8 years now. This can be used for visual astronomy planning, and it can also be used for photographic planning. I specifically have the Pro or Professional edition of SkyTools, and that includes some of the photographic elements. But I'm not going to emphasize that this evening. I'm going to concentrate on the one particular edition, the standard edition, which I think is very popular and covers off doing visual astronomy. This is a very different sort of breed of software. This is a different animal. It's not like Sky Safari or Starry Night or Stellarium in that those tools generally present very nice planetarium views, quite realistic views of the sky, and then have some other features to help you find objects and maybe log them and so on. The emphasis of SkyTools is very, very different. You'll see as I demonstrate it. I started using this software on Friday, the 27th of August 2010. 2 days later, I had built my first observing list, and now I feel naked if I don't have this software with me when I'm planning, when I'm at the telescope. So I won't go into our sort of whole history of how we came by this, but I quite like this software. So why would you want to use this? Why do I need it? For me personally, I need targets. I need things to look at. I need goals. I need a checklist. And I was sort of doing these things by hand. I wanted to know about new sort of current objects that were visible, like comets, or transient things like an outburst or a supernova. I wanted to know about things like that and have those on my observing list. I would cull together data from a lot of different sources, and it took forever to do this. And I've been sort of casually, I haven't been going after certificates per se, but I've been casually trying to work through some of the popular lists, like the Messier observing list and the finest NGC, RASC NGC list, and so on. So I've just been working through these lists and checking things off, but again, I wanted to sort of have everything as much as possible in one place. More and more, I was taking my little computer, my netbook out with me during observing sessions, and if I could, drive the telescope, but I was also using it to visually confirm what I was seeing in the eyepiece. And I early on, I was using stellarium, and I was struggling with that, because I have a modest telescope. My first telescope was a Celestron 8-inch SCT, and to a skilled observer, you can see magnitude 14. So I was seeing objects beyond what stellarium at the time could present to me and getting confused. So I wanted a tool that was highly accurate, correctly presented as much as possible, star fields with magnitude 13 and 14 stars in it. And if you know me, you know I like double stars. I also wanted to, if I was looking at double stars, particularly a binary system, I wanted to see where the A and B stars were in relation to one another fairly accurately. So I was looking for software in 2009, trying to find something that would sort of satisfy these requirements. And I did a lot of research. I looked at Astro Planner, I looked at Deep Sky Planner, I tried out a couple of the websites that have planning capabilities. At the time, I couldn't actually get my hands on SkyTools because they did not have a demo or a trial version. That is not the case now. You can try the software before you buy. But it was upon recommendations of some other members, notably Phil Chow and Ian Wheelban, that sort of convinced me that SkyTools was going to be the best choice. You will note that of the formal software applications, only Astro Planner runs natively on a Macintosh. That said, I know of lots of people that run SkyTools in emulators on a Mac, and I know of no problems with that. So just be aware of that if you're sensitive to the specific operating system. There's sadly few options for the Mac. So what I'd like to do now is give you a demo of the software, show you what it looks like. Again, you're going to see that I'm running the Pro version, but I'm not going to overly emphasize those features. I'm going to show capabilities of the standard edition. And I want to really focus on the planning as opposed to the logging types of things, sort of why you would want to use this software ahead of an observing session. So I'm just going to switch over here. What you'll see coming up on my screen right away, this is the first screen that you see when you start up SkyTools. No charts. SkyTools does do charts, don't get me wrong, and I'll show you those. But you can see clearly there's a list here, and this list was assembled ahead of time. I'll show you how to build one. But clearly it's got a mixture of objects. There's some deep sky objects in there, there's some planets in that list, there's some double stars, variable stars, open clusters, galaxies, etc. And you can see there's lots of detail. So there's quite a lot of information being displayed already in this list. You can see the right ascension and the declination values. You can see there's distances showing in one of those columns. There's some columns that indicate or can indicate the rise and set times, but you'll see there's begin and end, and there's an optimum column there. I'll talk about that in a bit more detail shortly. You can see there's a difficulty index or assessment. So the tool actually knows about a lot of things about me and about my telescope. It knows the magnitude limitations and the resolution of the telescope. It knows about the eyepieces that I have. And you can see it's even recommending an eyepiece. A really quick thing that you can do is look at the street light, traffic light indicator. Green is good. Those little green balls means these are good objects to go for on this particular evening. The ones that are yellow or red are going to be out of range. Maybe they're off season, maybe they're very, very low in the horizon, maybe the moon, stupid moon is out, interfering with your ability to look at faint, dim objects. So this is classic sort of screen, the hub, if you will, when you first start using this tool. You could sort by these columns. I'll click on RA, sorted by that, or you can click on distance. But typically I sort by optimum. And that's to sort the objects that are in this list in a very particular way for the observing session. You can see above this list that there's a bunch of controls here. A lot of these are filters, which I'll talk about in a moment. But near the top is something called the night bar. And if you look closely, printing's a little blurry there, but you can see it's centered on midnight. And you'll see that it goes from white, this is daylight, and starts getting darker around 2100, and it's quite dark at 2200. So this is simulating sunset. And then we move through midnight, and you can see that at about 4:30, it starts getting gray and then white. That's the sun coming up. So this black portion is what we're interested in. That's your nighttime observing window. If you look really closely, you can see that it's actually gray and then goes dark between 3 and 4 o'clock or so. So what's that? That's the moonlight. That's being simulated as well. So the tool is taking into account the moonlight or the moon phase that's occurring. And you'll see if you look very closely, there's also a curving arc, blue dashed lines here. And that's indicating the path of the moon and that it's falling and it's setting at 3:30. And then it gets really dark. This is tonight, right, May 23rd, at the Science Center. And this is taking into account local lighting conditions. It knows about light pollution for a particular city. You can dial that up or down as needed. And it knows the telescope that I want to use. I've told it which telescope I want to use, and that's where all the eyepieces are coming from. But let's say I'm doing some long-range planning, that between Christmas and New Year's, while I'm visiting my mom, I want to plan for an observing session. So I can set the date to some point in the future, so I'll hop out to December and around the 28th or so, and I'm going to say okay, and see what changed there? See the night bar? Much wider now, of course, longer nights. What Andy talked about, we're near the solstice, so short nights in the northern hemisphere, but on December 28th, it's the opposite. That's one of the longest nights, and you can see that gray showing up at midnight, moon's coming up. But this shows that for 5 hours, you could look in nearly black skies. From here at the Science Center, I'll change the location to somewhere different. So I have lots of locations programmed in here, but I'll choose somewhere else. Maybe that I'll be near London. And it's hard to tell there, but that got a bit washed out. It's not as black as it was. So again, it's taking into account light pollution. Let me switch lists here. This is just a random list that I built for demonstration purpose, a wide variety of objects. But let's say we're working on our Messier certificate, and we want to look at objects that are well placed in the evening. So I'm just going to switch here to a different group. Groups are like folders, and then within the group, there's different lists that's available. There's the Messier list. You can see there's a Herschel 400. There's a Rask Finest list in there, a double star from the Astronomical League, and so on. Those are built-in ones, ready to go in the tool. But the Messier one popped up, and there they are. There's a listing of all the Messier objects. If you look closely at the number down at the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see it's 113. That's because we have some objects that are kind of double things, different things. It's a diffuse nebula with an open cluster in the middle of it, so we've got some higher counts going on because of that. There's the complete list though, but you may know that in general, you can only see all of the Messier objects maybe in March or April with a concerted campaign where you're doing the Messier Marathon. But other times of the year, it may be very difficult, if not impossible, to see all the Messier objects. So I'm going to tell the software that I don't want to look at all these objects right now. I only want to look at things that are above the horizon. And you can see the list is still saying 113, but I'll tell it that I only want to look at them in complete darkness. So I've filtered this out, and now I've gone to 78 objects. I'm also going to tell it that I want to use a visibility factor. These objects need to be visible. So that's dropped it to 44. I'm going to tell it I want objects that are easy. That's what I use for star parties. When I'm prepping for star parties, I want eye candy, low-hanging fruit. I want wow, cool things to show people in the eyepiece, not faint fuzzies that people go, I don't see anything. So that's a good short list of, you know, good candidates there that are highly visible. And I can put time restrictions on it too to further filter this. It's a small object, but I'm going to tell it I'll start it not 7 o'clock, so it's shortening the list up some more. So the filtering's really useful for making sure that you're seeing good objects that are visible now, tonight. And if I make a point of sorting this by optimum and click on the first object, do you see that red line? I'll click on a couple. Watch over here. Watch the red line jumping around. See it moving? So as I click on an object, it's showing me where it's going to be in the sky. So I clicked on M15, and it's peaking or culminating at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Obviously, I can't see it then. But it's starting to arc or fall down. But when it starts getting dark, when I'm ready to observe, it's just falling below this horizontal green line and getting lower and lower, and it sets just before midnight. So this is showing me I should look at the object early in the evening, not late in the evening. It'll be gone. And the objects like the cigar and Bode's Galaxy and the Beehive, I shouldn't look at these at the beginning of the evening. I should look at them later. If I click on cigar, see what's happening? At 7 o'clock, it's low, but it's rising through the evening. It'll be better at midnight, moon comes up, but it culminates at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. That's the good time to look at objects when they're high, right? The green horizontal line is at the 30-degree mark, and that's the threshold for 2 atmospheres. If you look at objects above 30 degrees, you're looking through less than 2 atmospheres. If you look at things below that 30-degree line, you're looking through more than 2 atmospheres. So you get high extinction. So this helps you determine when to look at objects. Photographers, they use kind of the 45-degree rule and up, but this gives you a good sort of rule of thumb of where things are sitting in the sky. They can be very low all the way up to the top edge, and that's 90 degrees. So if I walk through the list really quickly, this is showing objects that go very high, like M34 is almost straight up at 9 o'clock. So I've sorted these in a good sequence. So this is a key feature for me of SkyTools, that I'll collect together a list of objects that I'd like to look at, but then I get the software to help me figure out if they're viable, if they're decent, when they're going to be well placed in the sky, give me the right sequence in which to look at these objects, or to photograph them. So that's a built-in list, the Messier one, that we can use or look at. And again, I wanted to show you the night bar, how we kind of use it to determine what things are going to look like in the evening. And you can see we can do sorting and filtering on it. On any of these objects, if you wanted more information, let me go back to my general purpose list there for demonstration. On any of these objects, if I wanted some more information on them, I can easily double-click on one of them. And let me just bring over this panel for you to look at here. So here I've double-clicked on an NGC object, and I can see some of the alternate names. In the case of an open cluster, the Colander number or the OCL catalog number. I can see magnitude and the size of it and some other details. Notice all the tabs down at the bottom. So this is about building observing lists or copying from observing lists. So this is in a couple of different lists. I could keep my own notes. So I like the year bar a lot. Even the software author doesn't promote this very much, but I quite like this. I've got it set for midnight, and this is showing me that this object is best viewed, you can see, in the fall. So that I find that very useful from an imaging point of view. When's the best time to shoot an object? Is it in or out of season? And there's that horizontal green line, 2 air mass line again. Let me double click on a double star. And here you can see details about the double star, the position angle and the separation, usually in arc seconds, for that. There's the Washington Double Star Database official designation for that double star. I'm going to look for a double star that's got the swirly pattern, little icon here, 72 peg. That's a binary. There's the calculated period and calculated position angles and so on. So it's telling us how long the orbit will be of the B star to the primary there. If we double click on a planet, of course we get details about the planet, how far away it is in astronomical units, the phase of it, how it's illuminated, the moons that are associated with that planet. So lots and lots of details are available for all these objects. So that's nice. It's quite rich, this tool, in terms of details. Something very interesting about this tool, and I think that even a lot of people that have been using SkyTools for years don't fully appreciate, is that the author has vetted the data that's being presented in here. Lots of tools include the list of all the NGC objects, and there's no errors in the NGC catalogs. There's even confusing elements in the Messier catalog. There's a couple of ambiguous entries there. The author of SkyTools, the Skyhound developer, he has tried to resolve a lot of these issues and clarify a lot of these issues. So it's really interesting. The catalog information generally is very, very good. This is not perfect. I don't want to make it seem like there aren't any issues with this software, but it's the best of breed, I think. Now, let's build a list, and we can do it together here. So let's make a new list. Let's say we're going to go up to the Carr Astronomical Observatory for June to do tonight right now, just to do it quickly, and then I'll jump ahead. So there's the 13th, 14th weekend, and I think that's a new moon weekend. Narrow window of opportunity, as Andy pointed out, so we got to be on our game and work quickly and look at objects in a good sequence. Let's build a new list. So I'll create a new observing list. I'll make sure it goes into our example bucket here, or group, but we'll call this CAO weekend, for example. And let me switch to it. Of course, this is a brand new list, so it's going to be empty. All right, what's going to be a good planet to look at in that period of time? What do you want to look at?
Jupiter.
Jupiter? Okay. We can look at Jupiter. There's a search for Jupiter. There's a search result. Of course, it gives a fuzzy search result, so you can see Ghost of Jupiter, Planetary Nebula comes up here. There's a few other objects that are listed here. I'm going to make sure this goes again to my new list. I can direct found objects to different places, but I'll add it to the list. There it is. What else do you want to look at? Another planet? I don't know about you, but it's not a planet. I'm looking at Mars. Thank you very much. Mars is close. It's going to be good. So there we go. There's those added. Yes, Pluto is in here. Okay, why Pluto? So there we go. But notice it's not listed, but because I have my filters active. So let me relax the filters here. So there's all our objects. Do you want to look at a planet, a moon, one of those difficult moons? Do you remember the moon that Andy suggested we look at? Himalaya. Right? So moons are listed in the catalogs here, so we'll add that. I have been trying to get Deimos and Phobos here, so I've added those in. I've got a couple of the moons in here. Do you want to look at any deep sky objects? Give me a deep sky object. That'll be good. That
Okay,
time.
the ring, 57.
The ring. So we can do it either way. We can do the ring nebula. That was too broad a search, so do it again there. There's ring nebula. You could also search by the Messier number, right? So I'll add to list. A globular that Andy suggested. M13. So notice I've just done a really short form there, M13. Easy to search for an object that way. I'm going to look for a double star, Tau Cygni. So there's Tau. I'll add that in. And when you're searching for NGCs, you can use a nice short form. You just put the number. So 6503 there, and it finds that object. So
for things like Markarian chains, something like that.
It does have a few things like that. Let's try it, Markarian. So yeah, so it does have a lot of alternate words in it that we can use, but sometimes you'll have to search by some other means. Usually you can do a search one way or another. Now in the Pro version, which I have, there's also the database power search. And now you can start searching by criteria. Oh, I want to look at objects that are between this magnitude and this magnitude in this constellation, and so on. Really rich searching if you get the Pro version. But I won't show that. Joel, to your question about keywords, I'm going to put in a very particular keyword here, galactic, and it's got some of the markers in it. I often get this question up at the CAO, hey, can we look at the center of the galaxy? So, okay, we can aim the telescope there, no problem, galactic center. So you can easily add in some special markers in there as well, if you want. So this just allows you're reading a magazine, you go, oh, here's some cool objects that are listed, or, oh, I'm watching the Sky This Month presentation, I'm going to note a few of these, and I'll add those to my weekend campaign. So you can see you can easily add these into your list, no problem. Another favorite feature of mine in the tool, though, is when I just want to look at stuff that's well placed in the sky, or I need to get ready for a public star party, or I'm supervising at the CAO and there's a bunch of kids coming up, so I want to show them cool stuff that's well placed in the sky. So in SkyTools, you can use this feature called the Nightly Observing List Generator. And what could be easier? So if I'm doing star party stuff, I say, give me the showpiece objects, okay? And it knows my location, and I can tell it I want a big or small list. Here, we'll do large for now. And this is very useful for people that use the built-in logging capabilities. I do not extensively use the logging inside SkyTools, but I do mark or note that something is logged when I've had a very good view of it, I saw it well, or I imaged it well, I'll mark it as logged. And then I can exclude that here, and this helps me meet one of those first objectives that I listed with the software, that I want to look at unseen objects. I want to look at new stuff. I'm not going to turn that on for a star party, though. So create the observing list. Let's see what we get here. So it's going through the huge database here. Do you have a sense of that? That SkyTools is a database. It's running a whole bunch of databases, pulling from a whole bunch of different lists. I have the Pro version, which has 500 million galaxies in it. And it's got stars to magnitude 20 in it. So it's pulling from huge databases. And it just gave us things that are good on this evening, right? So there's a great eye candy stuff for the evening. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select all those objects, and I'm going to copy all these objects from this newly generated list to my CAO list. And saying OK, and I'll flip over to that, and I have a handsome list now. I've got a good list now of things to look at on this weekend. And once again, I'll sort it by optimum, and here's the right sequence in which to show all of these objects. Oh, I think I sorted it reverse. So there's, oh, the moon's up at the top. Okay, whatever. But then, then we can start chipping away at this list. And when I look at stuff in an evening, I mark it as observed, observed, observed. So that's kind of the check mark. I look at one, I don't get a good view of it, so I mark it re-observe. So I'm going to go back to it later or go back to it the next night. Maybe we're clouded out for a while. And things that I really want to look at, I'll mark as not yet observed here. And you see this weird yellow box there? That's my permanent log. So the markings that I've just done, observed, not observed, return to them, re-observe, those are sessional markings. So that's just for the evening or the weekend. But the yellow box is a permanent log entry. I've looked at it. Going back to it's just for fun. But in terms of maybe completing a certificate, I've seen it. It's done. It's checked off.
What's in the log file?
I'll pull up one of the log entries, so it keeps up. I got to pull it over here. It keeps the telescope details, the location, the date. There's multiple log entries. Right? You can record scene conditions and transparency and stuff like that. And then you can enter in detailed notes and images and other stuff in here. So you can build up full log entry notes here. That part of SkyTools I don't use. I do all that somewhere else. But I at least tag that I've seen it here. And that's so I can use the exclusion setting when I'm using the nightly observing list generator to get lists of new objects I've never looked at. So that's briefly the logging capabilities in the tool. So again, I've really been focusing on the planing capabilities and using it during the evening here, so you're looking at cool stuff given your objective for the evening or your personal targets. I haven't shown you the visual aspects of it in terms of charting. So does it do charts? Yes. So let me pull up a chart here. I'll pull up the interactive atlas. Right-clicking is used a lot in this tool. So I'm pulling up an atlas. Let me just switch it here again. So here's the interactive atlas that I've just generated for this. And you can see while they're not photorealistic like, say, Stellarium is, these are still quite accurate, sort of nice charts there. You can see the Milky Way is drawn in, and the constellation lines can be turned on and off, and effective star brightnesses and colors are all simulated in the tool. And there's my target. I had chosen Bode's galaxy, so where is it? And I can zoom in and out of this view very, very easily. See the blue circle or shape is starting to show up. There's usually a fairly accurate indication of the shape of the object, how it will appear. So I'm zooming in closer and closer. And that might be very useful, this view alone, if you're doing classic star hopping. You just pick your nearby starting point. Oh, I'll start from Dubé, and I'll just head that way by star hopping, and you get to your object there. So I like the star charts here. This is the interactive atlas. And this will, you can tell it, show all 20 magnitude stars and show all the faint fuzzies that are in that field. In combination with this, when I'm using this at the telescope, I use another view which has a bit of a clunky name. It's called the Context Imager, the Eyepiece Imager Context Viewer. Let me open that up. And you can see there's the galaxy in the center there. But if you look closely, that's my telescope and an eyepiece in my telescope. This tool is the most accurate tool that I have found in terms of showing me what I should see in the eyepiece. Or if I'm doing it the other way, I'm looking at something in the eyepiece going, what is that? And doing field identification in the software. I've not found anything so accurate as this. That's your field of view. If you precisely enter in your telescope details, your eyepiece details, field of view, all that, and it also considers the viewer, your age, your pupil dilation, which I hate to tell you, it's getting worse and worse. But it also takes into account your experience level. experienced users can see, viewers can see a half a magnitude or a full magnitude compared to a novice. So it takes all that into consideration. I like that you can rotate the field. I have a telescope with a mirror diagonal, and I'm always changing the position of it. So that was really important. That was a litmus test, this software, that it had that sort of capability. I'll switch to a different object here. Let's look at, say, one of these nebula. So I'll switch to that, and here comes the simulated view of that nebula. There it is, and I'll switch to a different eyepiece here. So we'll dive in. I'll go to my my 9 mil. Is that the 9 mil?
That's 4.
Oh, the 4. Oops. So that's a little bit too much. So we'll just do some different eyepieces, and it's simulating the view. Now I can still zoom in and out of that to say, oh, there's a field star. I see that. So I quite like this context viewer there. Very, very nice. All right, one more chart that I'll show you here. This is very, very different, and this still kind of freaks me out. This view, how you can use this. So there's something called the telescope view, for lack of a better term, and it opens up a chart called the visual sky simulation. And here's what it looks like. And this is the new way to get to objects. And that you can't even really call this star hopping. It's not really star hopping. What this is showing you is that if you want to look at this galaxy, let me zoom out here. If you want to look at this galaxy, the Cigar Galaxy, aim your telescope in this area. So the top left corner is showing me where to just roughly put my telescope. If I zoom out a bit, you can see there's your Big Dipper, there's your markers. Aim the telescope from this distance to this distance, same distance in that line, put it about here. And then look through the finder, and you should see these stars. Now maybe you're off a little bit. So you look for these stars. If you're lucky, you'll see the object right away. But when you see those stars, then you can shift a little bit the telescope as needed and get in that area and look through the eyepiece, and you'll see the object. It's 3 steps, and it's not even star hopping. It's not hop, 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 hop. It's just aim in this general area, fine-tune it, look through the eyepiece, and if you're lucky, you're on the object. And the first couple of times I did this, I went, this feels like I'm cheating. This is too easy. And now I use the Pro version, so I have real-time mount control, so now I really feel like I'm cheating, because I have my observing list, and I click on the object, and I tell it, slew to that object. And then I look through the eyepiece, and it's there. So I really do feel like I'm cheating with this software. It's just amazing. So clearly there's lots of visual charts that are available in the standard and the Pro editions of the software. I'm going to switch back to my presentation now, and I just have a couple of concluding slides. Thanks for your patience here, and bear with me for a second. So I give you a little demo there of the software. So I've been using this software for over 2,800 days, and I'm still learning stuff, but I just find it's absolutely essential for me. I use it for my planning. I use it as much as possible during my observing sessions, and I do logging in it as well, and do corroboration and double checking of things for my log notes. This helps me prepare better. It's helping me complete lists, complete campaigns. It's helping me go deeper. I generally want the computer with me, so a fringe benefit is I'm using less paper, and in the end I'm getting more photons, either into my retina or onto my camera chip. So this tool I found indispensable in that respect. This is not trivial. SkyTools is not cheap. I have some good news about that. It's not the cheapest tool out there. It's commercial software. It's a little bit expensive. It's not a simple interface. It took me a while to acclimate to it. Already it's a different way of working. Again, you're starting from a list. You're not looking at charts right away. Again, it's Windows specific, although it works in a Mac emulator. And it wants a lot of screen real estate too. So you're going to have to go buy another big monitor. There's 3 editions that you may be interested in. The starter edition, which you can try for free, is suitable for a small instrument, 3-4-inch telescope. The standard edition is good for people with 8-10-inch telescopes, gives you the list and sharing capabilities. The Pro edition has real-time mount control and has photographic capabilities in it. How much is it? If you go to the Skyhound website and look at the street price, those are your prices in US dollars. But the good news is we have now a special offer from the developer. Don't go to the Skyhound website directly. Go through the RASC website and buy the software there if you're interested in it, and you will realize a 40% discount. That will take you to the SkyTools information page on the RASC national website, that QR code, if you're interested in learning a bit more about the software, and then that has a link to the purchase page where you could buy the software through PayPal with your credit card or your PayPal account. So if you do want to get this software, visit the national website, log in, and again, you'll realize 40% off the regular price. Again, consider if you're somewhat interested, but you want to stick your toes in the water, download the starter edition, and you can try that for free and get a good sense of how it all works. Lots of information is available from these websites, including my blog. I have lots of information, quick reference guides and keyboard shortcuts. Uncle Rod Meliz, if you know him, he's a fan of this software as well. And I've written about it in the journal, so if you look back to the 2015 editions of the journal, you'll find my review of SkyTools there. And I also did a review of Astroplanner in the October 2016 edition. That's the Macintosh planning tool. So you can read the reviews there. A heads up, version 4 of the software is coming, but I don't know when. But if you buy now, you'll get a discounted upgrade price as well. So start planning. You can buy the software inexpensively through your RASC membership. It's a new benefit or perk of membership. I've gone quite long here. I don't know if there's an opportunity for any questions.
Definitely questions, yes.
Okay. So, thank you. Yeah, I see. Oh, Clay, hi.
Hey, Blake. First, I just want to thank you for negotiating this great deal on this software.
Oh, yeah.
And great presentation.
Thanks.
I'm gung-ho to get it right now. I bought a computer specifically for
Buy
this
now.
purpose. Yeah. Anyway, one query about...
I don't get any benefit, by the way. No.
We do. One question about the Pro Edition. Can you scale down on the magnitude of stars that you'll actually see on the charts?
Yeah, so that interactive atlas that comes up, there's a simple control where you can tell it, show me more stars, show me less stars.
Beautiful.
So you can set the magnitude limit. It's also a scalar in that when you zoom in to the chart, it starts showing you fainter stars, which is analogous to you popping in a new eyepiece. So it's smart that way. And I rarely use it, but it also has the ability to control the lower and upper limits of the magnitudes of all displayed objects in it. So it's very, very good. But the quick controls show me brighter stars, make the sky brighter. It's very easy to use that. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Tom.
So Blake, the system has a built-in filter for 30 degrees due to extinction for the atmosphere. Question, does it have multiple filters? The reason I'm asking this is because when you use a Dobsonian to observe with, you have the other thing you have to worry about is high altitude as opposed to low, because you've got a section of the sky, depending on your preferences, around above 80 degrees from the horizon, called the Dobson hole, where it's difficult to observe.
Yeah.
Will that, does it have that feature also?
As far as I know, no, actually, that it doesn't have a feature to exclude objects that are really high. I'm showing the filter menu, and you can tell it look at things near maximum, which you don't want with a Dob. So So I haven't seen that, the ability to filter out objects that are directly overhead there. There you go, problem solved. The new version of SkyTools 4, I've noticed, has a new level in it, that it's got the 30-degree marker, and it has another one in it now. I think it's at 45. So it looks like he's starting to add in, you know, there's obviously going to be lots of new features in it, but he's added in something like that. But I can ask the developer that. I see a question for Ed at the back there. Any questions over there?
Hey, Blake. So to kind of carry on from Tom's question, like if you have a refractor or altazimuth refractor on a tripod, in fact, the high level was one thing I was asking about, but also you don't want to be putting it up and dropping it down on the tripod legs. It would be nice if the software had a way to say, give me the best stuff, but kind of don't make it go around from, you know, down here to up and down a whole lot, rough area of the sky, and then move on.
So I think indirectly you can sort of do these things. I don't know of filters that specifically control this, but you saw the night bar, it's showing you the elevation through the evening. And the time sliders that you can move, you can put things in a window, you can put things in a box when they're going to be at a certain elevation in the sky. So using that, the night bar, and it's really hard to see the scale, but it's 0, 15, 30, 45, and so on. And then using the red line time markers as your starting and ending points, that you could do that. You can also filter by constellation. So you can pick a specific constellation and hang out in that area. I have to do that on cloudy nights. And you can also indicate a filter by the type of object. So I think a few tricks like that, using the filters in a good way and using the time sliders and paying attention to the night bar and the elevation, effectively you can do that. But there isn't a filter that says don't show things that are too high. For sure, I know there's not that. Yeah.
Blake, question. Will it run on older computers with older operating systems?
This is a old, terribly old computer, Windows XP. With 4 gigs of memory, no, not 4 gig, 2 gigs of memory, and a slow SSD, okay, and it works fine. This is a 9-inch screen, so I feel hemmed in by the screen, and I'll hook it up to an external monitor if I can, but if I'm out in the field, this is what I use, and it works fine for that. Remember again, anybody that's in the computer business can appreciate this, that ultimately this is a database. So you know that databases want a fast hard disk. That's what you need if you're filtering on the Herschel 400 list, right? It's going to try to show you all 400 objects. And you saw that slider going across when I was switching the filters. You know, it will lag a little bit in those cases. The software developer encourages people, do not build huge lists with 1,000 objects in it. Keep your observing list reasonable, 100, maybe 200 objects max. What are you going to be able to observe in a given evening or over a weekend? So if you're not rushing, it's going to be 50, 40 objects as your starting point. Guy.
Yeah, Blake, thanks again for this. It's great. I have one question, and you mentioned about using this in the field, and you have a screen like that up in a crowd of people. You're not going to be very popular. Does it have like a red screen you can... Now, perfect. That's what I wanted to know.
It has a nice red screen mode.
Thank you.
And doing that, actually, it did things behind the scenes. It actually went to the Windows desktop and shut off the desktop. So all your icons that are in the background of your desktop that are also very bright, it's hidden all those. It's gone to a black screen for the desktop itself. The external monitor is not showing that, but my prime monitor has gone black here. Also, the red light mode is adjustable. You can actually change the intensity of the red. And I still put a red film on my screen to attenuate it even further. but it's a good red mode, and all the charts have switched into high contrast red on black backgrounds as well. So yeah, it's a pretty good, pretty smart red mode. Yeah. Yeah.
So Blake, I have a quick question about transient objects. You may or may not have mentioned comets, but notice in Andy's presentation, you mentioned a comet. And so a comet's one example. Another example might be a nova, like recent Nova Persei. But the question is, so if you suppose a fast-moving comet, most of them don't move too much in one night, but it's pretty good at plotting when's the right time of night to see this comet. But does it have coordinates? And usually when you see some projection for a comet, you'd want to know how old is its ephemeris, or is it up to the hour, up to the date, or whatever. So if you happen to know about how it handles transient objects like comets or nova, if it knows about a nova?
Yeah, so good question, and the short answer is yes, all this data is quite current. Now it is ultimately, that data is updated by the author, so you got to wait for him to do the update, and he does sometimes get bogged down, but in general he's updating that data on a very regular basis. That's also what drives his website. So the Skyhound website has the comet chasing page at Skyhound. That's one of, like errorist.net, that's one of the popular destinations for people looking up comet information. So that might be where SkyTools software started, is he wrote the engine to generate current data on these comets. Now I'm pointing to a command called update current list from the web. I won't run it right now, but it would crawl out to his website and get new current information under this category. So under the current group, there's current comets, current minor planets, and current supernova and nova. So those are all being updated. If you do this at the beginning of your weekend, you're going to have pretty current information there. So when I'm doing my session planning for a dark sky weekend, I make a point of updating all the comet information. And then let's look at the current comets, and I'll sort by magnitude, and I'll pick off, okay, here's some bright ones here, and I'll add those. Now I'll copy those to my list. Similar sort of things with supernova. Also, there's the ephemeris tab, right, here. So that's in the standard and pro editions. So you can have a plot or a table that shows you all the ephemeris information here. I didn't mention these other tabs, but the current events is what I use to help me with the Sky This Month presentations. And that generally gives me a month at a glance calendar. It's almost perfect. I do all my formatting, as you may know, in mine, but that's very, very good for giving me a list of interesting events that are going on. The other thing that I'll briefly mention is that you can choose a comet. I don't know if I can do this really, really quickly here, so give me a second to see if I can generate this really fast. But I chose one of those comets. I'm going to have to zoom into it here. So I'm zooming into this comet now. And if it's got a tail, the software is going to represent that. See how it's sluggish here? It's trying to draw all the faint stars. Oh, there's a little tail showing on it here. I'll zoom out one level. But I'm going to activate the tracking trails thingamabob feature here. So on this target object for the next, not years. So maybe I'll switch that to days, right? Days. And it's doing the plot now. It's going to show me where that's going to move. There, I don't know if you can see that red text there, but that's showing maybe day by day or hour by hour position changes. And I've used that effectively to do some photography of a comet and to specifically track it as it moves. That is blurry stars and a nice focused comet. So it's very good about current stuff.
Yeah. Hey, Blake, well, let's stop it there
Yeah.
now. I'm sure Blake will be around after the meeting to take more questions.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Blake. Very good presentation, very interesting. And our next speaker is Charline Norgrove. Okay, so we'll have to do a little switching around of equipment here. Give us a second. So we're switching to an Apple laptop here. Hopefully everything will work out okay. Charline will present on Atacama A's. Sounds like she's traveled to the Atacama Desert one more time. She presented to us back in 2016, I believe. Okay, all set. It's working. Very good.
So, thank you. So I was in the Atacama, in Chile, San Pedro de Atacama, for a couple of weeks to observe the southern sky. The trip was arranged by Malcolm Park. Now, a lot of the names on this list you might know of people who were there. Dave Chapman, he's in charge of the observing program for RASC nationally. Whoops, sorry. Lynn Hilburns, a renowned astrophotographer, as is Fred Espenek. He's the eclipse guy. He was there. Jerry Black's a really good photographer. You'll see some photographs from all of these people. So there were 11 of us. One guy left early, but so we basically had 10 people. I have to remark on Melody here. This little star, she's only has binoculars. She came down with a list of 50 southern sky objects to observe and sketch. And she did it in 2 weeks, except for a few at the end because we had aircraft problems. They canceled our flights and we had to rearrange them. But she did it. It was a remarkable feat. So this is the area we were in. This is about a 100 square kilometer area. Every place you see a red star, there's a San Pedro right up here. We were lodged about right here, but every place there was a red star, some kind of astronomical event occurred, and I'm going to talk about each of those in sequence here. So what are the Atacama A's? Okay. Oh, no. It's not a major or minor league baseball team or the Astros or anything. It's first of all, it's astronomy. And next, it's adventure. We had some adventures. I'm only going to go with one that's a non-astronomical related adventure. And all the rest. Now, if you don't like acronyms, you can leave. So all of those are telescopes that are on this observatory that's called the Llano de Chantautor Observatory, set up by the government of Chile. It's about 20 square kilometers in area at an elevation. All of those are at an elevation of over 4,800 meters. So I don't think many people know all of those are there. We know ALMA is there. I've talked about this before, and I'll talk about it briefly again. But I don't know how many of you know that all of those other things exist there. And for the most part, they're all involved with researching the cosmic microwave background. They do something with, they're all radio-type telescopes. Okay, this is where we stayed. This is where we've stayed before. The proprietor is an astronomer, and he makes his living by running sky tours at night. There are about 3 busloads of people that come out from San Pedro, and he gives them a sky tour. And and he uses this setup right here. There are about 10 Dobsonian telescopes set up, and he uses those for his sky tours. We lived in the lodges here and here. The observers, the 4 observers, used this pad right here for observing. The imagers used this area here where they could get power, and some of them went out in here. I want you to remember this little spot here. I'll show you in the next slide. But the observers, we had the chance to use one of these telescopes, this one here. It's a 16-inch Daub, every night after midnight after he finished with his tours, and a few nights before midnight. So we had some good observing from there. It was mainly Dave Chapman and I that went up there after midnight and spent several hours. So here's the tree. This is an image by Jerry Black. I'm just going to show you a few of the images that some of the real photographers got. They're astro imagers. This was a 20-frame time-lapse sequence stacked with starry landscape stacker. This is one of Lynn Hilburn's images. How many of you are familiar with him and his images? Yeah. Yeah. And as you can see, it says, I came, I saw, I was conquered. This was 3 o'clock in the desert. That's Lynn right there, posing between the small and large Magellanic Clouds. It's a seven-image panel by Lynn. I had to use another one of his too because it's just spectacular. You know, all those are stars. Just blows my mind. You know, and this was 8 by 2 minutes. I just can't stop looking at that one. This is one by Malcolm Park. Most of you here, I think, know Malcolm Park. This was a 300-second image, and he used a tracker, Star Adventurer tracker. This shows the famous targets that most people know up here. So here's the Centaurus A and B, the Pointer Stars. Here's the Southern Cross here. The Coalsack, Eta Carina, and this is my favorite. This is the little constellation Musca down here, and here's the dark doodad running through there. That's real. It's got a fancy name, but that's real. Okay. Now I'm going to borrow from Andy Beaton here. Here's the special image. It's mine. And this is a one-shot, untracked camera on a tripod. Wow. But I'm going to move on to the next one because it shows a little bit more. So here's another one, same thing. I like this one because I managed to get the large Magellanic Cloud in it. So, and it's also got lots of stuff in it. So here's the Southern Cross, Coalsack Nebula, Eta Carina. This is the Southern Pleiades right here. Here's a false cross. If I can see it from here, it's kind of hard to spot. Okay, here it is. Here, 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 and here. Okay, people get that mixed up if they're not familiar with the sky, you know, but, excuse me. And next to it is this Omicron Velorum cluster, Southern Beehive cluster, Canopus, and the Large Magellanic Cloud. Okay, so, okay, moving on. Okay, we did get to Alma. They're now giving tours on Saturday and Sunday mornings. They bring a bus out from San Pedro to the control center, and we were lucky. The 4 of us went here. Had to wear hard hats. We were lucky in that they had a dish in for repair, down from the array. They had brought it in for repair, so we got to walk all around and see that. And they also had both transporters in, so we got to walk around and look at those. These things just amaze me. You know, they drag those dishes around, they drag them up to the array, and then they drag them around the array and situate them. It's quite the machines. Okay, they have a nice visitor center, and somebody's got time on their hands because they made Lego models of a transporter and of a dish. Okay, so we actually got a live view of the array at, you know, April 15th at 11 o'clock. And this is an overhead view of the array. They've got them arranged more closely together than sometimes. It depends on what project they're looking at. How they can arrange these large dishes out to 16 kilometers. So it can be quite a large array. Okay, so all the rest of the mostly A's. Now I should have called these Atacama O's because these are all observatories. But I only thought of that today. So So we're just going to run through these pretty quickly. The science is pretty much over my head, but I'll give it a go. So this is up on the plain. This is about a 20 square kilometer area here. And all of those are located up there. They're all over 4,800 meters. This is in what's called a Pleistocene volcanic system. This is these huge plains surrounded by volcanic mountains and lava domes and such. And okay, I'm going to talk about these first. We had a flight problem, so Malcolm and I had an extra day there, and the other people had to go back the day before in order to make our connection with Air Canada to come back from Santiago to Canada. So Malcolm and I decided to drive up and see what we could see up here. So we drove up on this little road and got up to here and stopped about right here. And we observed all these things. The only one we knew what it was the ACT. Either of us have a clue about all this other stuff that's up there. So it's a 6-meter telescope designed to make high-resolution microwave surveys of the sky in order to study the CMB. And it's at 17,000 feet. So I'll come back to this one later. We had an adventure with this. This is the Apex. It was an ALMA prototype from 2005. They used it to kind of predict what they wanted to see to find targets that ALMA would be able to study in greater detail. What interested me, I didn't know before I looked this up what a bolometer was. This one on this instrument is the largest one in the world. It detects tiny temperature changes caused by the faint submillimeter radiation. Okay, ASTI is a pre-prototype for ALMA. The first light in it was 2004. This is a Japanese-built dish. The Japanese are partners in ALMA, so they have built some number of the dishes that are at the ALMA site. Moving on. Class. Okay, here. Cosmology Large Angular Scale Surveyor. This one makes precise measurements of the polarization of the CMB. This is a newer instrument. I think it was 2016. I forgot to put that on there, 2016. And we saw this one. Here's the Polar Bear Observatory. This one came online in 2012. It's a polarimetry experiment. And here, you just lose me here, which aims to characterize the minute angular scale B mode signal. I'm stopping there. I assume that's how they got the name, polarimetry and B mode. They named it Polar Bear. But we'll also study how the light from the CMB is deflected by the intervening structure in the universe. Okay. Cerro Chadnator Atacama telescope. This one's interesting. There are 40 Canadian, God, I can't do it, sorry. There are 40 Canadian scientists are collaborating on this one. It's in process of construction. First light is 2021. Okay, it'll be the highest telescope in the world when it's finished, 5,600 meters. Here's Scott Chapman from Dalhousie. He's one of the collaborators up there working on it. And this is what it's expected to look like. It'll be a wide field of view telescope capable of mapping the sky very rapidly and efficiently. So that one's one to watch out for. We didn't see that one. It was up and around a mountain where we couldn't see it. But we knew it was, after I came back and looked, I know it's there. Okay, this is continued. If anybody wants to read this, I'll just stand here for a minute. But what caught my eye was it will also be a next generation CMB observatory. Everyone through with this? Yes. Okay, the last one is Nanten, which in Japanese means southern sky. It's a 4-meter submillimeter telescope in a collaboration. It's out on a plane, collaboration by all of these countries here. So all of that stuff is up there. Okay, now we're going to have a touristic adventure. Where's Mark? Where's Paul? Okay, this is my only tourism slide here. look at that volcano. We were on the way back from the El Tatio geysers and saw this spewing. It was spewing sulfur in two spots. And so we were tooling along, and we saw these big rocks on the side of the road. So we got out and we walked over and looked at them, and they're sulfur. And there's the volcano in the background. There's Dave Chapman there, Malcolm, and the rest. This is Melody, the gal that got her certificate. We decided, after talking about it, that they do a lot of sulfur mining in this area, and that these big chunks are probably just chunks that fell off the back of a truck when they were moving. That's our guess, anyway. Okay, on to an observing adventure at Laguna Lejía. This was gorgeous up here. The objective in going up here was twofold. The one was the imagers in the group wanted to get some scenic images with like a laguna, mountains, really dark sky. So we went trekking up there at dusk to do this. So here's a small story here. So this little spot right here is where we left the road. This is the main highway. It's 40K back to San Pedro. And here's where we're going, Laguna Lejía. That's 62K on this road. Okay. This road is narrow, dirt, gravel, steep. You're going from, let me see, I gotta see this. You're going from 8,000 feet here at Tocanao up to 14,000 feet here. So there's a climb. And rutted, narrow, windy. We stopped, it took us about 2.5 hours to get up there, but we stopped along the way because it was still daylight before we got up there. So I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. So this is from my phone. It's pretty reasonably accurate. So we were at 4,300 meters here. We had twofold purposes. One was the imagers wanted to get this lovely scenic location here. The other was because there's a meteor crater here. And we thought, oh, we can get up there in time. We'll go up there and see the meteor crater, come back and set up down here. So we drove along this road up here. Malcolm's in we had RAV4s. Malcolm's in the first vehicle, and I'm driving the second one. And we get up here, we get up to this point, and Malcolm stalls. So I'm behind him. I have to put my brakes on. I stall. Couldn't get it going. We just finally, the angle was quite steep. I don't know, 30 to 45. It was steep. And at this high altitude, I guess we just figured out the cars couldn't do it. Couldn't breathe it. We thought about getting out and walking up to that, but by the time we do that at that altitude with people who weren't used to this, it would be dark. So we just turned around and went back down over to here. So this is what the laguna looks like. I got these snaps just before, just before sunset. But we got there so that they could run down and take them up. So this is just kind of a scan around the lake. Salt, here's salt, it's a salt lake. And there's the other one. And the guys were set up, down close to in here somewhere. Okay, so this is Dave Chapman's image, and this is untracked. It's camera on a tripod down by that lake. You can see the laguna. It's a little dark in here, and the mountains and the sky. And I wondered why the sky had that kind of texture to it, and he's a physicist, so he explained it. It's a natural air glow from the recombination of ionized molecules created by solar UV light from 100K and up in the atmosphere. But as far as I'm concerned, it's a wonderful picture with a camera and a tripod. Okay, so here's our next observing adventure at the Valley of the Moon, which is just west of San Pedro. We went up there at sunset in order to try to track the Earth's shadow moving across the valley. It was an adventure because it was full of tourists, and getting to find a spot, where you could set up equipment and get a clear view was hard. We finally did it. These are by taken by Jerry Black. He made a video of this, and I just took screenshots off of that. So, here you can see the shadow down here. He didn't get it set up in time to get photos all the way across, but he got this, and then it's a little farther here, then it's up the mountains, and here it's gone. So I really like that. But what he used was this. Has anybody here ever used this dynamic perception stage 1 slider? Does anybody know about these? Some few people? I'd never seen one before. It's a step. Here's the camera and the intervalometer on here on this slider, and it's a move, take a shot, move, take a shot, move, take a shot. Yeah. He mainly uses it for sunset to sunrise photography. So, okay, here's the last adventure, and I'm almost through. This is a high Atacama adventure that Malcolm and I experienced. And so we're up, this is from my phone. It's not quite right, accurate because we're only about 15 feet below here, which is at 17,000, but it's close enough. We're over 5,000 meters. So why are we up there? Do you want to know? Guess what those little things in white spots in the background are? Those are the Atacama dishes. That's the Atacama array, the ALMA array. Okay, and we're up here above them looking down, so we're busy patting ourselves on the back. You know. So the road here, we drove up, down around here. I'll show you that later. We drove on down here and got as close as we felt comfortable getting to them to get this picture. And as you can see, it's like you saw before, the dishes are all arrayed pretty close together. This is the correlator building here, which is where the signals from all of the dishes come into. They're processed, and then they're sent down to the control center from there. Okay, on the way, just casual pictures here, we did see Apex and Nantan and Aste, but we didn't know what they were. So, okay, so here's our adventure. So Malcolm and I drove up to here, and then we came back down. We took this road past Apex and down around, and we stopped about right here to take our pictures. And Malcolm said, you know what, I've been studying the maps, and I think we can go back out to the main road, which is up here, by just following this road on around, instead of having to go all the way back out, which would have taken, you know, about an hour. So we tooled along this road here. Guess what? Guess what? So we sit there, and Malcolm says, I think I see a gate over there, right here. So we took off across this little distance in country. Yes, there's a gate there. It's locked. So we sit there thinking, okay, I guess we're just going to have to go back. We'll just go back the same way. It's no big deal. There's still lots of light. In the meantime, we see this little white van tooling down this road here. And we looked at each other and thought, rats, we've been nabbed. We're not supposed to be here. But no, there were 4 guys in the van, and Malcolm just put his hand out the window, and he pointed to the gate, and he said, salida, por favor, meaning exit, please. The guy said, no problemo, no problemo, no problemo. He got out, they opened the gate, we whizzed on out to the highway, which is right there, and I thought as we were doing that, you know what, it's 5 o'clock. These guys are getting off work. They're going home. If we had been any earlier or any later, we'd have had to make this trek all the way back. So that was our little adventure up there. So when we got back to the lodges, this is what greeted us on our last night there, this nice sunset and the little moon and Venus. Okay, so I'd have to thank all of these people who let me use their photographs and their images and all this plant. And I'm going to leave you with my favorite volcano, Likan Kabur. This reigns supreme over the whole Atacama Valley. Thank you for listening to me. So what do I do to escape this?
It's for Charline.
Just one question, Charline.
Can I just leave this here for a minute? Yes.
Me.
Oh. Oh, my.
How did you breathe at 5,000 meters and 5,600 meters?
Yeah.
I had trouble enough at 4,000.
You don't go running around, you know, no. we had planned that the mountain Saratoga right by that was 18,000 feet. We were going to do a hike up there, some of us. Well, no, and some of us had prepared, except Malcolm hadn't. There's an altitude pill you can get from a travel doctor called Diamox. And we didn't get to do that hike because of this flight business. But I had been taking the pills for a couple of days. And I don't have altitude trouble anyway. Malcolm had a little bit. He said, you talk, I'm going to be quiet for a while. But we were fine. As long as you know the rules, you don't bend over and stand up quickly. You go slowly. But someone pointed out to me that I can't remember the title, that the air pressure up there is half of what it is here. You know, and I hadn't even really thought about that. But, and only one of our people who'd never been out of, more than sea level, she got a little bit sick, the first day, but everybody else managed. But Malcolm and I were the only ones that went up there. So, anything else? I encourage you to go. As you can see, you can go with binoculars, with nothing. I just have a small telescope, camera on a tripod, or you can, with all this imaging equipment, whatever you want, you can get there, and do. It's a wonderful, wonderful place to visit. So,
one question from online. He wanted to know if how long it took to plan this, and is it just a private group that you guys just got together? And
Malcolm Park arranges these tours, and it's just whenever he thinks he wants to go again, which is all the time, And this is the second one with him I've been on, and I was on one before, so it's my third time there, and I would go back tomorrow. I just love it there. It's just wonderful. But now Malcolm's a member of the RASC, and everybody else was too. Right. And I think it's been, to this point, kind of word of mouth.
Sure.
So,
So you didn't have oxygen tanks?
No.
I heard that going to Alma.
No, last time we went,
they had to have oxygen tanks.
Well, you go up if you're working, but we were in a car. We were in that RAV4. We were just driving, We weren't working. I'm sure that Dr. Chapman, who was working on the one that's at 18,000 feet, I'm sure he had a backpack with oxygen. Because if you're working, you need extra oxygen. You just can't do it. The drivers on those transporters, there's 2 drivers, and they have giant tanks of oxygen in there that they have to take with them all the time. All the people that work up there at the Alma dishes have oxygen. So we were just silly tourists. So.
Quick question. Is it a touristy type tour? Or is it more it was designed to go take nice pictures of the sky, because there were these 7 imagers who do really good work, and 4 of us who just wanted to look, and I wanted to take a few pictures too. So no, the first time I went there, it was an organized tour by I don't see him here tonight, by these MWT tours that take astronomical related tours. But Malcolm, it's just a private tour. We go, we do touristy things during the day if you want to. Several people didn't. We went to a lot of places that I didn't show here because I wanted to keep it just on astronomy related items. So there's a lot to do there. Are there a lot of tours there, like while you were there?
Oh yeah, and I know one. We can talk later about that if you want. Yeah. So Ed's been there before. He was on the last one with Malcolm's trip. Okay. Anything else? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Charline.
Would you like this?
Okay, so I guess we'll close off with the announcements and look at some of the upcoming events for the Toronto Centre over the next little while. So first of all, our next meeting is approximately 4 weeks from now, 20th of June. And again, another recreational astronomy night. And here's the bill. So we have Chris Vaughan, who will be doing the sky this month. We'll have the Nath family coming to talk about predicting risk index of asteroid collision using AI and displaying it musically. I think this is actually what they had for Science Rendezvous at Ryerson University earlier this month. And then Matthew Bozo-Ray will be talking about exploring the Kuiper Belt with New Horizons. Our next solar observing is this coming Saturday, May 26th from 10 to noon. And as usual, Sean Lee is going to be doing the go, no-go call. Looks like from the extended forecast, there's a pretty good bet that it's going to be 50-50, right? So we'll see what happens. And the backup date is the following Saturday, June 2nd. Okay, as far as our regular monthly observing program is concerned, of course, tomorrow night looks pretty good for, what is the City Star Party? For this week. And then after that, in June, we have our two events, the Dark Sky Party on the first clear night of the 11th through the 14th of June. And then the following week, the first clear night, 18th through the 21st at Bayview Village Park, we'll have the City Star Party. And again, in the usual way, the go, no-go calls will be on our usual channels. On June 22nd, we have our next scheduled Millennium Square event. And again, we have a go, no-go that'll be on the website. And again, you're welcome to help out there between 6 and 11 p.m. on that Friday evening. The other big event that we're involved with is the public opening gala open house at the David Dunlap Observatory, which is being hosted by the town of Richmond Hill plus the partners in operating the observatory now, which includes us, and that'll be on the 9th of June. It's a public event, and of course, members of the Toronto Centre are welcome to attend that event, and we'll have our volunteers there as well, running a booth and doing presentations and generally meeting the public as well. So again, if you're not volunteering as part of our group there, you're certainly welcome to come and participate as a member of the public and see what's going on, what's planned for the DDO going forward. The other thing that was mentioned by Andy earlier is the General Assembly, and that is now open for registration at this website, rascga2018.ca. And again, they have a full program of both public and member events for that. And if you haven't been to a General Assembly and want to meet fellow members from across the country, it's certainly a good opportunity to do so. And this is actually the last General Assembly that's going to be organized by a local center. Starting in 2019, the planning and programming for General Assembly is going to be done by staff at the national office, and the 2019 event is already scheduled for Toronto, and we're going to be helping out with that, but the national office is going to be calling the shots as far as the programming is concerned for that particular event. The other thing to remember is we've got a number of other benefits in addition to meetings and observing sessions. We do have our own dark sky observing site at the Carr Astronomical Observatory near Collingwood, and we have the spring work party that's going on this coming weekend to get the property ready for the summer season, and you can now book online to get bed space and use the site. And again, we do encourage people to use the CAO and to make good use of the best dark sky observing spot that we have in our possession. The other benefit, of course, that we have is the equipment loan program, telescope loan program. We have at least 2 of our program managers here this evening, Peter and George. So if you have any questions about that, please see them after the meeting to talk about it, see what they can do with arranging equipment loans for you. And finally, the meeting after the meeting at the Granite Brew Pub down at Mount Pleasant in Eglinton. Again, a few of us will be going there this evening. They do have tables set aside for us, and it's a good place to chat about what's going on in the center, and you're welcome to join us there. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this evening. Thanks again for coming out. Again, the next meeting on the 20th of June, as well as the various events that are going on. So have a safe trip home. We'll see you next time. Good night, everyone.